Take the cover out first.
I graduated already. I'm working on my BA now.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, you're doing social work BA?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm going to do. Oh, so I'll be joining you in December.
Yeah.
I took our first social work class.
I'm gonna go get those consent forms.
It should film our graduation.
I'll do you consent because we're all
Because,
doing young people.
my graduation and,
Are you graduating?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, oops.
Who's sitting here? Do you know who's
Yeah.
sitting?
I don't know.
I don't know how they're doing the singing arrangements. Oh, that's right. That's stupid. I have to.
No, that was right.
No. Can you take that off? The lens? Take the lens off? Yeah, take it off. So what are you doing? Like, we're getting a shot here? Mm-hmm. If you hit when they're talking? Mm-hmm. Just slowly, like, you don't want to do blurred, you just slowly come over. It's called panning. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or if you want to get a closer shot or certain things, or people stand up maybe, you want to just do it slowly. Mm-hmm. It's called panning up and down, or panning sideways, or panorama, we call it. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, like, your mom's there, right? When she's talking about something very interesting, go ahead and grab it and just kind of slowly zoom in. But just kind of like a flick like you do. Like,
Okay.
It's like you see on TV.
Yeah, got it.
And then like, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
And I can get hero shots, but...
Okay, let's see how we can get this. We have to do an advocacy, digital story. A story that is going to talk about advocacy that's important to us in Browning. And so one of the things that we talked about is that, there's just not a lot of advocation for culture and language in the school systems. People say it, they go to the meetings, they tell the board these things, but they really don't get to hear kind of the intimate knowledge that's connected to that. So what we're doing here at Blackfeet Community College with Piikani Studies is we're really looking at digital storytelling as a way to tell our stories and to get those stories out there so that other people can see what it is that we're thinking. And as people who are normally seen in a different context, where people tell our stories for us, well, we're turning it on the opposite end and making those stories more relevant. And so advocating for culture and language is something I know all of you in this room have really worked on. And so we're really looking for your perspective and guidance in this area. I have three students that are working on this digital stories project. I got Cinda Bird-Minicky, Eric Cox, and AJ Bullplume, and they're going to be doing filming. And there is one thing about filming is that you're able to just sit here and absorb, or you can contribute as much as you want. If you do contribute and you're on film, we ask that you sign a consent form. Part of what BCC is doing and engaging more in is research. And as we engage in research, we find ourselves more and more having to get information from our community members themselves. And by doing that, we have to have your permission to use the footage for the purpose of educating teachers, administrators, and other people coming into Browning. One by way of Mike's Improving Teacher Quality grant, but also through the Digital Stories Project, kind of relaying the information we need from you guys in order to show the rest of the world why culture and language is important. And so Theodore and I are involved in this, Mike's involved in this, and Mike is going to facilitate the discussion. He has 3 guiding questions that he's going to ask, and he's going to ask them in the order that they show up. One is, what do you see as far as culture and language integrated into the school systems, or educational systems in general? It could be the college, it could be the high school, middle school, elementary, it could be the immersion school, it could be the boarding school. So in the context of educational settings, that's what we're looking at. The second question is, what don't you see? Now, a lot of the times people use it, it's called appreciative inquiry, which means you get everything out on the table, so then you can talk about what you want to see eventually. So the questions are like this: what do you see, what don't you see, and what do you want to see that you may not already see, as far as culture integrated into the school systems here on the reservation. So Are there any questions about the consent process? I think we'll do that very last because we want to get into. What's this mean?
Turn your phones off.
Oh, turn your phones off.
Oh, yeah, and I have
Theodore, you have any words you want to say?
Yeah, all I wanted to say was that, in February, when we went to the meeting in,
Kita ako tumatsi mo ikakwa. At every meeting. That's no.
where is it now?
Clyde.
Clyde, will you be able to say the prayer for us?
Okay, saka tikinuhutapas. Okitapas ki poaik. Akanisti. Kiksiko kitsi popsi. Matatakai meitsi. Tamuutus siun muka. Austata puhupistika. Mutta biodatstus utsiimukas. Taakitseni katu muhki kakumassa. Uhtuutuu taakitseni katu. Jakisesta näissä kaapio aatsimuoskoussa nennika. Mä otan tohkuista kiupaastikista. Aatsimuoskani täyttäkö mun tahpiska tukkikin päätä piisi. Ja koko konaissu kaapiun. Kai tohkoni piutsis. Haajomkinaamki naapi. No kaapääkimistä tisannika nuhristi kuu takuiskannika. Haaneks pomiita piukannika. Mä siitä piukannika. Okei naa töitä piukin tässä päätä piukannika. Hän on pikin maanatskuussa kisti kuiskannika. Joku tohsiska tuupaa kukkanistiuu kannika. Hän onkin täällä onksui täskeli maasta, kyllä käytäppi tuun. Kiskistä kiikukaani täskeli maasta. Hän onkin kukaan panskat semmoista paappiistannika. Ako kanauka keskisteen mieltä, kun täskeli maasta tuupuu aikannika. Hän onko saa polttaa kiiksennika. Pikin maanatskuussa ennika. Aina kaksi tuupanika tsivuiskanika nika. Sä tohkustaks pinnaan stikistä nika. Suutaa piikonoh päätä piisin enkaa. Äikis kautinen tammatuussimaan, niin kyllä samah kuin. Mä olisin tässä siipaa tää sääpuuta. No pohka neipänne kuuta piuksesta nika. Ouki nukuussiksi, nyssukuussiksi, niistä pissukuussiksi. Nakano aasita pehko katsikko kuunnelma päätä piisinä nikakka. Haimalla takemissa tuhkita piiminnääniksi. Kootuu maakkinaan nikakka. Kan pitää niitä, kun tsikin mataapsa tuussinä nuksakkumin nikakka. Häkuhkaa ei kaakima tuupinnaan, niin akuhtäässä kaapeniksisesti kuistikan nikakka. Oikein kuukuista kaajuukka tuussinä, niin se kaapiikan nikakka. Ai okin maanatskat saa nikakka. Ai kuhkei puhutumaan pilksillisekistä nikakka. Ai on maa tässäkin mii tsiipaani tsiipuukseni katsomuska. Maa tässä kuvaava tuopaatiksen nikakka. Netsä mahka kaikki täkstä mii puhutumaan nikakka. Ai no pekin maktomkina nikakka. Kipitääkin, onko se kokuussyksen nikakka. No kattakaa, että piästi keksi. Ja koko tranaatoa pistettu ainikakka. Pukuone kikuussa ja kyssukuussa vaaksen nikakka. Oikein kaapaa mahka tuumakan nikakka, eik muhsu kuikan nikakka. Matkaksu kaapaa taapua tuistu tsiipua aikan nikakka. Hän on pekin maanatskat se saa nikakka. Niksiisti kuistikin nikuukuisten nikakka. Eikö ei kun se pois pianokkaan, mä täskeni maasukpen nikakka. Joku taapas kiipauhka näissä paapiua kannikaan. Mukaan päikkimistä tuukin naanit. Houkena kastiista meikä maa tässä puut tyypistä tyystymässä. Nakita pia taso kinakiupanika. Ispumo kasa kakimanista kisina sa Piikani. Watapi kanika. O kakimama tsipian sitapi minnanik sanika. Kististumps. Ako kita pasik kistisnik. O kanaki nimpsta tumanik päätäpis sanika. Tikibana sko sanika. Keitap kaikiksi sko tuota piuksen. Istui kanika. Kimama tuanika. Ahtkanaasukaa pia kanika kanukistikuis kanika. Eikö kaapa uksiskatu kanika kanaasukaa pia kanika. Nyt ajattelemme, että tahpiskatu pia kanika tsimus kanava tuussimaani kanika. Haluh pikimukitan uksistikuis kanika. Ajatas siipaa tässä puutsi kanika. Keikö kaapa outumanik siipuuksen. Aja mata tuina tuu kanika. Tsimuiska. Sikuksi päätä Piikanissa puutuu, suktas pomoota piuksena nikaa. Konassukaa piukan nikaa. Hän on kimmessä nyt nukuissina, skitään on tikin sitä pompahkatuu paljon sähkumin nikaa. Akpist kanasta apsia sukaa piikan nikaa. Taikaa kimoja nikaa. Akko samaa päännoksena nukuissina, kun se sitä piiminnaan niksen nikaa. Hän on kimmistä tsesään nikaa, kanassukaa pinukittuussaan. Hogan resta pohsiska tuopan tuksistikuista nikaa. Joka tuksiska tuoha kaaksikin kattamattuussimaani kennika. Aiemalla kohkumatskossa tuopan nikaa. Aiko kaikki kahkimattuupan nikaa kaatsimuiskan. Ahkon tahkoissukaa pinoiskostasi Piikani vakan nikaa. Hogan resta pohsiska tuopan tuksistikuista nikaa. Hogan stavatsemaan. Hogan lohkoita piisa tuussina niin päätä piisa nikaa. Hogan näissä puu kaatuu peonistui. Akokkat se tuutuksi näin kuin taaksaski mukaan.
Thank you, Clyde. From there, what I was going to say was, we're doing this as a project for our schoolwork for our doctoral. But the other part is, in February when we went to Helena and they presented because Montana Historical Society had gave the Blackfeet tribe, gave all 7 tribes money last year. And with that money from the tribe, there was, from there was, from that money that they gave to us, there was Diane, Marvin, Arlene, Sinclair, Leona Sharp, and myself. We sat on the board and for the tribe. And what they did for us was that they wanted us to see what we wanted to do with it. They wanted us to do some projects that was for preservation. So what we did was we took the money and we asked everybody across the whole reservation, any program, put in for this money, and you can tell us what you want to do with it. But we have to do something that is for preservation. So there was 5 different programs that put in for it. And only one of them just decided not to take it. So the other 4 did it. And everybody did a really good project with it. So we had to take everything back. The school district did some recordings with their teachers and some lesson plan for the teachers. The Blackfeet Community College, I let Mike talk about that one. They had some in here that was involved with that. And for the program for the board members that was up there, we just did some recordings. And Marvin did an awesome, Diane did an awesome one. Everybody did an awesome job on those. Every one of them, right now, if you can see on TV at night, it was at 3 o'clock, but I think they were going to change it to 6 or 7 o'clock every night. They're playing the tapes now. So there's language on TV right now, and that was part of the preservation. So when we took all the things that were done, we had Darren Kipp work with us. He did a lot of the recordings, and people did a lot of the work. One of the things is from Northwest Reading, a long time ago, the different people from the school. Okay, so a lot of people from the school did this reading series from Northwest. They did all these books. But what we found out in the research of doing this, those books, since Northwest closed down, those belong to the tribe. So if you want to use the books, all you have to do is ask the tribe. I guess it's some program that they have, some planning program, and you can use the books. And so you're always used to, we can copy them, so, but we don't have the money to recopy them, but at least we have them in like a Xerox copy, something like that. So we still can use those, and those are ours. And with that, we are going to, one thing with all of that program, so when we went to Helena, they used up all the recordings, archived them. Right now, they're putting them up in their archives. Come July 1st, anybody, anywhere, wants to request them, you just call Montana Historical Society, ask them for any of the Blackfeet tapes, the Blackfeet books, any of the recordings. You request them, they'll send them to you. So what we're trying to do right now is get a list out of everything that's going to be available. So we'll be doing that. So this is kind of like, we were supposed to work with them just for a short time, but it's gotten so nice and so good that we talked to Governor Bullock. Governor Bullock right now is looking at, right now in his own budget, continue to put money in there so every year we don't have to ask for money. It will just come to the tribes and they can do activities. Different tribes do different things. But I'll let Mike talk about what the college did with your guys' money, because we had the different programs. Just a few minutes, yeah, just a few things.
So what we developed here at the college is based on the concept of the periodic table of elements. If everybody's familiar with the periodic table, you have elements, and then you could take this element and put it together. I could do it on the board if you want. Give you an idea of what we're so you could take this sound and this sound and this sound, and what there's probably about 300 syllables, give or take, and you could put all these together to create words. And that's what's on our website, is all these syllables. And when you click on a word over here, it'll light up all, you know when you play Keno and all those balls fall down into the, it'll light up all the syllables that are using in that word. And there's about 30 lessons that are all digital. And we had Laura, I think we had Art, Gertie, Leora Aerotop. Whoever I could find that day, we brought them in and we recorded them. There's probably about, I think the late Tiny Man Heavy Runner has some sounds on there too. So, and it's always, we're always going to be building it. It's just getting your foot in the door. Marvin's developed some classes over the years, and we're just building on his knowledge, and we're taking it to the next level. So it's not just in books or on paper, it's on digital. And they're just basically tools. They're not the answer, but they're going to help you learn the language, the syllables, how to enunciate correctly. So that's what we've got so far. Then we've developed some apps for the phone. So anybody have the app on their phone? If not, you better get it right now, today. It's free. So that's the iPhone. The iPhone, I got Red Oscar to do the sounds on that. And this is real basic colors, numbers, days. And then the one I built for Android, I built it in 2 days. So it's just really minimal.
Give
But
us
it's,
instructions on how to get it.
if you have a smartphone,
You gotta shut them off.
when they are on, you go to Google Play and type in, you can type in Blackfeet language,
Okay.
Piikani language. It will bring it to the app. You click on it, and it will download.
Oh, okay.
And then once it's on there, then you can click on the different ones. I didn't know I was going to be presenting, otherwise I would have had it set up.
Oh, no, we just wanted to talk
Sure.
about the language, just of what our program went through.
You did
And
that.
That's
Great.
all. So with that program, with everything like that, what we want to do with the recording stuff, that bill still hasn't went through, and it's that Bill 272. And so I was thinking with some of this, you know when they ask for testimony, this would be something good just to show them and let the other people hear what the Blackfeet want and how we, what we want. Because, everywhere else, everybody always talks for us. And this is our time that we can talk for ourselves. So that was just something I wanted to say. And so now we'll go with, I guess, starting with Mike is going to be doing some of the questions and working with things like that.
Mike, is this the same app that you can put on an iPad, or is it a new one?
That's the iPad one, and then there's a Google one, and then there's a website one we created that you can get on your smartphones, and it's just a web-based.
We had all the kids at the LaSalle school download this on their iPad, so they all have it.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was another one for other phones.
And there's videos on YouTube that have lessons that Cutswood created, and then your guys' project created. They're uploaded onto, and I think Miss Bird made one. I'm not sure if it's uploaded yet or not. Yours? No? Is Marvin's?
I don't know that, we're working on mine right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There
So-
were some there.
Like she was saying, there's a lot of monies coming down, and we'd like to include all you guys in here. This is not gonna take the place of the speaker. You have to have the speaker here with you to help. You don't cut the speaker out. It's just a tool to help the student learn. We wanna get the language out to the community somehow. In Piikani studies, we talk about why it's not there and why we should have it. But I think this focus group could help bring it all together. So where are you at with you want us to start right now?
Yeah.
And just ask the question to everybody or the
Yeah,
specifics?
just ask them and they can answer. If they don't want to answer, they can just absorb, they can just,
Okay.
so we can start from there, or they may think about it and answer later. That will-
So the first question that they want to ask is, in what ways do you see Piikani culture and language being integrated in our educational systems on the Blackfeet Nation? This is to everybody. Take your time, but hurry up. No, take your time, and if you have it on the top of your head, it's just gonna come out. But
Mr. Armstrong.
we are all players here, and this is our community. And when I did research with elders, some of them are not here anymore, and they said that the reason why they didn't speak the language is because they went to boarding schools, and they were treated as such for speaking their language, so they didn't pass it on to their children. Everything we're saying is now just an excuse. What can we do now from today on? We can't go back to do anything, make anything, but we can go from today forward. And that's just basically the question. In what ways do you see Piikani culture and language in the schools?
By schools, you mean?
On the Blackfeet
Is
Nation?
it offered in the schools?
K
Besides the
12 or?
Blackfeet school itself, is it offered in the schools?
Well, speaking for myself, I'm one of the teachers with 4th, 5th, and 6th grade school, and it is offered in each school. And speaking from my classes, I teach 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and it's strictly BNAS, Blackfeet Native American Studies. So they incorporate language with the storytelling and society, history, everything that needs to be taught. And we have a curriculum that we have to follow each day.
What grade do you teach?
4th, 5th, and 6th.
Okay, so it is in the schools then.
And each grade has own teachers that teach each student. So
Yeah.
they each get a taste of
Because I
Blackfeet
do know it
language.
is
everything.
taught at the early Head Start, which is, I like it. I think it's a good thing to have in the schools. I wish we would have learned it a lot sooner. It is something that we need to have. And I was kind of disappointed not disappointed, but I'm glad that we have the Blackfeet school, but you have to pay to learn your language. I don't think that's right. I mean, but it's getting out there, so as long as it's getting out there, I think it's a good thing.
How do you have to pay?
Don't they have to pay to go to that
Go to school.
You gotta pay your
Oh, that's
instructors
what it's
somehow.
called, yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a private
I'm not
school.
I'm not part of that school, but how I know is that Just like singers, you have to pay your singers.
Yeah.
You should pay them well because that's the physical documentation of permission for our ceremonies. That's just a model to go by. Same thing with your instructors. They have to be paid. They can't fill their tank up with prayers and tobacco. They can't eat on that. That's good. That's good, and I guess that's the balance. One side over here, in Western society, it's about money. Time is money. Then over here, the respect. And you notice when Clyde started to pray, everybody was silent. Right? There's reverence when prayers begin in our language. So that just shows that the model works if you were to incorporate it into the schools more so. And it's a good thing they're doing.
Yeah.
And we need to back up Mr. Armstrong on what he's doing and everybody else in their efforts. It's not just one person or one person's not responsible. I think it's our community is responsible. And I think that's why you guys are here.
Diana, Berta and I have been working on the language and culture integration since 1990. And it's in the school systems. We have educators in the school system of the language, the culture, traditions. But for some reason, the language just doesn't carry through from the children to home life, to the community. And what we found out is the parents don't speak it at home. They don't enforce it at home. Those that belong to the societies and participate in the Native American religious traditions are learning the language faster because they're totally immersed in the activities and the tradition and the language. I'll use Jim McNeely for an example. He's one of the fastest learning speaking students that I know of because he's involved in everything, you know. But you can't teach the language and the traditions and the culture if it's not practiced in the home. And there's more of it, and more of it is being practiced in the community. But kids go home with their new words and ask their parents, what does this mean? And the parents can't tell them, well, you know, and I think that's one of the problems. There might be many other problems, but that's one problem I see. And I don't know if my colleague, Mrs. Bird, will agree with me. Well, being a teacher since I was 23 years old, I had to learn techniques and every way of teaching the language. My first language was the Blackfeet language. I see through the years that I don't like to put blame on anybody, but the school system don't have any continuity in teaching the language. They might teach a class on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but it's not the same class. So each of the kids rotate into that classroom maybe for, I don't know if it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes anymore when I was there. There's no way you're going to learn a language if you don't have continuity. And continuity means that every day you got to speak to those children. You got to teach those children every day. As a teacher in an immersion school, for a whole half a day we teach immersion. And those little guys down there can speak the language right now. They can come in here and do a whole complete sentence for you because we have continuity in there. We make them feel good about their language. Our community needs to support language. When you try to teach some of the workers and any of the programs, they'll say, I'm really interested in learning. But then they start saying, oh, it's really hard, and they don't make that extra effort to try to learn the language. Some of our parents do not know the language, but that doesn't mean that their children shouldn't learn it. Because what's happening in the school, in immersion school, they're going home and teaching their parents the language. And like I said, you can't teach it, you have to do it every day. You can't take 15 minutes and say, okay, this is a lesson because you don't learn language that way. As a child, I was taught to every day in the language, every day. Everything I did, what I was supposed to know was all in the language. And to this day, I'm 73 years old and I still retain my language. I don't have to look in a book to describe to you with that word is, I don't have to do that. When you look at a book, it takes away a lot of the meaning of the language. Trying to study a book and say, this is the way you say this, and when you're teaching children to read along, that discourages them. Say the word, let them hear it. Have them say it. They can hear themselves say it. The more they say it, they internalize the language. That's only my first part.
Yeah, sorry about the quick interruption, but when we get new people joining, it's really good to have more people. All right, go ahead, Diane.
We really have to have the support of the community, and that's every community. We can't just say, oh, Heartbeat teaches this, Star School or BAB teaches this, the college teaches this. We have to teach our speakers how to teach. And like I said, I didn't learn this overnight. It took me a long time to be a teacher. The college has that benefit to take speakers and show them how to teach the language. Or we can use the immersion school, the little guys, to show you how to speak the language and teach. But this is the community, it has to be community support. You have to really want the language, or you're just saying, yeah, I think I'll take it just so I can get credit. Do you really feel, is that what you want, or do you really want to learn the language? If you really want to learn the language, you will learn it because you try. Every word you hear every day, if you're walking to class, if you're sitting in the bathtub, or whatever you're doing, if you say that word over and over again, you will learn it. If you walk down the hall and you hear somebody saying the language, say it over again. That's the only way to learn a language. You have to do it every day, day and night. And when you start hearing the language, say you're sleeping and you wake up and you hear something, that's when you're starting to internalize the language. If you don't hear anything, I'll tell you a story about my dad. He used to walk by the television and say, you hear them speaking the language, the television. And I look at him and I said, it's the beat. They're talking the language because of the sounds. Because he couldn't hear very well, but he'd hear the sounds from the TV and he'd say they were speaking the language. I got other things to say, but I'll let other people talk.
So I'll reiterate the question to these ladies that were. In what ways do you see Piikani culture and language being integrated in our educational systems on the Blackfeet Nation? Could be any schools, Heartbeat, Star School, BAB, Hutterite Colony. They're on the res, right? Do they speak Blackfoot? Do they have it?
Blackfeet, or they were when I was there. Huh? Yeah, I go in the Hutterite classroom and they'd all say, okay, Mrs. Jarvis. So fast.
So what's the difference between them and us? That's a question. Okay.
I just, in my opinion, I think that our community and everybody in it, and first of all, I want to acknowledge all of the speakers in here who have helped me learn language, learn Blackfeet, this gentleman, this Dixie, and everybody who helped me, Marvin, everybody who has ever helped me with language. I just, always remember that. But I think that of all the good intentions, all of the hard work being put into culture and language, we still, our schools are still funded with state funding. And a school just isn't accredited unless they do this, 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 and this. And it's in my opinion that I think that tribes are owed additional resources for language, for Blackfeet language, and even in English language, about both languages. We'll boost up both languages, but to put an awful lot of resources into that because the language was stolen from our ancestors. And because of that, our children didn't learn it. So I think that it's that even with all the best intentions and all the hard work, that the state of Montana needs to own up to that they need to bring back, they need to figure out, federal government, state government, whatever it takes to bring that back to our tribes. So the question, how well is this being done? It's being done very, very well by very hardworking people without adequate resources. That's my opinion. We need more money, more support, and more money. And really pay people and for their work, because it's a lot of work. Like Diana was saying, you have to work on it every single day. You can't do just like 30-minute lessons 3 times a week. It's not going to do it. So that's all.
I would like to say something. Laura and Diane covered some of it, but I would kind of like to add to some of what they have already said, because I'm in that group where I worked most of my life, and I didn't have the time to teach my kids. My kids don't know how to speak in Aigu, but my children don't. And I have 4, but none of them. They can say a word here and there and understand some words here and there. But it would be nice, and you both talk about, there's a lot of money there, and those kids, when they're taught in school, and like Diane says, they go home, well, then there's nobody there to, for them to talk to, or for somebody there to correct them if they're not pronouncing the Indian words correctly. And I think that generation, those little kids, their parents, I think some of them should also go to school. And I know it's hard for some people to sit down and teach their kids, the Indian language, but I think if you target like the ones that are retiring, and they have the time on their hands where they can go to school and help teach those younger ones, because you guys, we all pass away, including people in here. There's got to be somebody there, generations that are to come. Oh, and then one other thing that I was thinking about too, if you could, record some stories, and some of the, younger children can play those stories at home, and, their parents can also learn from that too. And also on the radio, when, probably in the evenings when, the students and your parents are at home, they can both learn from that.
So, anybody else have anything in the way of what you see in the schools? One of the questions we ask here in Piikani Studies, and we changed it to Piikani Studies because when you're sitting in talking with the elders, they don't say Blackfeet, they say Piikani. So we made an effort to change it to Piikani Studies. But the question we always ask is, what does it mean to be Piikani? And my research indicates that it's language is one of the main things. If you don't have your language, Tagakistu is what they said, right? Who are you? So, what does it mean to be Piikani? Everybody should be asking themselves that question. Every day, every morning. When you wake up, who are you first? What are you first? We have all these ideas of what it means to be, everybody says, well, I got my card. Anybody can make a card, Costco card, get better benefits with Safeway card. And what does that mean? It's just a concept.
put a video game in front of a kid, he'll learn it in a matter of a few seconds. But you put a Blackfeet language game in front of them, they're gonna sit there, they're bored to death, you know. Is it that we're stuck in a mode that we need to upgrade our techniques, our technology? Let's develop a video game for an Xbox in Blackfeet and see if we can motivate our students into learning the language. You gotta think ahead, you know, you gotta jump ahead with these kids because they're not gonna step backwards into our mode of thinking and our mode of doing our ways because they're going to be bored. They'll say, I'm bored, and they're not going to be interested. Ask Mr. Armstrong, you know, but they really learn technology quickly. They learn it faster than me, you know, and they could show me how to operate stuff like that, your cell phones, your Xboxes. I still don't know how to turn on an Xbox, but they can learn it that quick.
Give a demonstration really quick of what a computer looks like. The language computer uses ones and zeros. In an analog signal like this is 1, this is 0, this is on, this is off. You ever see a light switch? Then when you change it to digital, it changes to this. Ones and zeros. So anything digital is in this format. So when you want to learn a language like C++ or C++ or Lua or what's some other ones?
The Xcode, that new one. Swift.
Xcode.
Swift.
These are all languages that use this. So I had to learn these languages to create an app in a day. I mean, that's just me though. I want to learn the language. I want to learn Blackfoot language. Every day I try new words. But that's me. That's not my community. If we take numbers and there's 17,500 on paper, but there's other people that claim this. It's not just 17,500. So if there's only so many speakers, say 300, maybe is this about right? 300, 500? Even that's like point something 1%. Yes, no, my math off? That's not a good number. That's not a good percentage. I mean, this is my 2 cents. This is my opinion based on what I've seen in my life. So this is why they called you guys here, to get your guys' opinion.
But you had the students from the middle school and high school do the digital storytelling last summer. They picked up on
Right.
it that quick. They developed their own. It was so easy for them. So I think we need to think in that line, you know.
いちゃいかしくにマーチ。よかったしくに。
40 years,
だけがいし。
graduate, complete school, head start.
Pitääkö mut siiputtaa maskakaai?
Once it's state synopsis, such a graduate.
こっちのみんなしゅか。
Kiikkaa, pitääkö se sut mua?
There's one thing, that really was hit on just a little bit by Lori, and I think it's very important. It's something that we need to put some thought into, as far as the job that Mr. Armstrong and Mrs. Jarvis and many of the other instructors in the schools have to deal with, and that is the state of Montana. The state of Montana funds the schools, and because of that, they tell the schools what to teach, how to teach, and everything that they want them to do in their classrooms. And one of the things that they don't tell them is teach the Blackfeet language or teach the Indian language. They say you need to teach more math, you need to teach more science. Teaching a language takes time from that. And you can't teach it because we have to know so much to stay on a federal scale and a federal level. One of the things we had really a hard time with was teaching. The Indian people teaching the language. We couldn't get anybody that knew the language to go to college and stay in college long enough to get a bachelor's degree, to get a teaching certificate, to come and teach. Take for instance Cheetah, he didn't want to go to, he finished school at Copeland School, he was done. He didn't want to go to University of Montana to learn. So we went through the process, we took about 12 years of working really, really hard, a large group of people, there's some of them in this room. And one of the things we did was we helped set up so that we can have a Class 7 teaching certificate. And that was one of the things that we worked really hard at. And we were able to get it set up so that people like Cheetah could come into the schools and teach the language on the same level as someone who has a teaching degree. And this took a lot of work. And when I think about it and you look at the thing that we need to change is how the state dictates to the schools what to teach. We need them to say, okay, Mr. Armstrong, we want you to teach an hour of the Blackfeet language mandatory every day. The same as you do the science, the English, and everything else. And then when we get that, then we can begin to see some progress because someone mentioned continuity. That'll cause some continuity. And so this is another area, we all don't like to go talk with the state and visit with the state and, bend over to what they have to say, but this in a sense is not bending over. This is the sense of meeting them head on and telling them, hey, we need to do this. And I think that's one of the things we need to do.
I think if the school district gets funding for Indian education for all, they have to come up with a plan, right? Do they
Yes.
still do that?
Yeah, they do, they have the
You have to come
K-12.
up with your goals, objectives, and so forth.
Yes.
And I think every year you have to put into
Yeah,
that.
it's not enough. It really isn't. I mean, if you look at a school budget, the most of the money is going to go to the teachers, and to the staff and to overhead and stuff like that. Just basically just running the school. But I think that there's a lot of hope because taking a look at the alternative school, the Blackfeet Academy. They wanted to be accredited, and they said, well, we just want to take these little, this little group of high schoolers, and we want to have these teachers be K-8 certified and get some help from some secondary teachers. And that sort of breaks the rules of accreditation, right? So, and then OPI said yes. And I think that 9 times out of 10, if tribes tell OPI in the state of Montana, this is what we need for our students, and here's our research to back it up, and here's our, our data or whatever, and this is why it needs to happen, they're going to listen, and they'll give our schools accreditation if we can give a good argument of why it needs to happen. To say, we need to spend more time on the language, and this is why. You look at Cutswood School graduates and Academy graduates and kids who are really, into the traditional ways and the ceremonies and learning language. They really have a good sense of themselves, and they carry that through, and it shows. We just need to present a really good argument to get more flexibility in that accreditation process.
What's interesting too is the state of Montana is the only one funding Indian education for all.
Very true, yeah, and so there's a good opportunity there. To say this is, okay, what does Indian education for all mean for us? Well, this is it. This is what we want to do on a daily basis in our schools. Not just a little bit thrown in here and there, but something that's really, really strong and really consistent and with some good funding into it. And, I kind of have to do some convincing of school boards and administrators, but it's doable. Just have to prove it, show it.
This is my thought on that is, why do we have to give our speakers a piece of paper? When we have elders on the reservation that can challenge those speakers and ask the questions to those speakers and see if they can answer them? If you've taught somebody in college or wherever in the high school and And these guys said, okay, these guys, we want to certify them as speakers, but you don't have to give them a paper. You have these elders all here asking the questions to these speakers that were taught. And if they're able to answer, create a sentence, you know what this means, you know, if they can answer and think, I know exactly what you want from us, we'll answer you. Then those are the ones I see to be the teachers. We have these elders all sitting here. The group, they can ask the questions. Are these students ready to teach? Do we have to go through the state of Montana because our people already know how to speak? They don't have to have a paper. They already know how to speak, excuse me. You know, this has always been my thing about it. We have many speakers, and because they're speakers, they say, well, I don't have that piece of paper. If I don't have one. They shouldn't have to have one because they're already speakers. You know, we don't need that. I don't think. Like Cheetah says, I don't have my paper, but you know, why should he when he's a speaker himself? And he goes to the elder and says, well, I want to teach. Okay, we'll certify you, or you're a teacher. That's my thought process. I don't know.
I think you have a very good point there, you know, about that, Diane, and I think a lot of more people think about it like that. But the reason why, like Marvin said, for the Class 7 is because we get paid from the school, and it falls under public education money or your Indian education money. It still comes from federal government or somebody, and they still ask for that. And with that Class 7, with the certified paper, it makes it really nice. And I think what we need to do, and it's something that Marvin and us had talked about before, and that is that we need to get people together who want to get certified. Find out who want to get certified. Get them together, tell them what they need to do, and we need to set up a format for them so that they can get it. And we talked to planning about that because we can get more people certified, and with that certification of the Class 7, then they get the same pay raise as like for myself as a certified teacher. So they get the same. That's why we have to prove to the state that they can do it. And it's really nice that, that they can get the same pay and stuff. But like you said, you know, if they could just do that, not be certified. But that's kind of why we have to do that, because we get funding.
But you can also ask for federal funding that comes directly to the tribe or to the schools. You don't have to go through the state because their allocation is counting here. You can go directly to federal funding, to Congress, and do that.
Because it falls under education, and education dollars go fall channeled through the state.
But you still
For
can go
accountability
direct,
and control.
So do we have to be like the BIA schools then to get that federal money? Because that's the way they get their fundings.
Teach your language, you don't have to. You have to be answerable to the state of Montana.
But I was just wondering, do we have to go through them? I meant, you know, because that's how BIA schools run. That's how they get their money. Like Busby, you know, the different places.
Do the BIA schools teach the culture, the language, and so forth? Does anybody know?
What's the difference between BIA and the state?
They're still dictators, huh?
Absolutely. And I think
That's
that
true.
tribes are sovereign. I mean, I guess we're learning about emotional sovereignty and legal sovereignty and all that.
Yeah.
But that's go forward, you know, and say this is what we want, and these are the people we want to teach our kids, and we want our kids to grow up in the language and make a statement.
Can I just interject? This discussion is exactly why we have Piikani studies, to talk about these issues on several aspects. You have, when people are on council, they have all their issues, kind of issues that you guys have to deal with, Marvin, Titus, Earl. Every day you got people coming in, people problems. But we all have to, how many jurisdictions do we have to deal with? You got the town, you got the county, you got the state, you got the federal, you got the Park Service, Canadian border, and all the other jurisdictions that lay claim to this land here that we say we're sovereign. Sovereign means free from external control. But if we're getting money from BIA, we're not really sovereign. And this is the reason why we have classes to discuss these things. What I've learned in Blackfoot ideology is that nobody's better than nobody, but when you have transfers, that gives you a little more leeway to say what you got to say, leadership. But you know, we could talk for days on these issues, and we're getting your input. For me, I'd like to see something on paper written from this, from you guys' dissertation, from you guys' stories, from you guys' students, everybody. You know, how do we all get on the same page? Like geese, when they fly, they all fly together. They're not just all individual. There's a reason why they do that. We forgot that community aspect of what we're trying to do in this community. Just another concept of the town of Browning. Who's Browning? How did they say Browning from out that way? Brown nose community? Brown nose. What do you call it? Asit.
The old one.
See, there's all kinds of. But Browning, what does Browning mean? Everybody went to school here in Browning High School. Well, we all have different concepts of Browning High School. But who is Browning? Okay. Why are we calling ourselves Browning when that guy didn't even like anybody here? Or what about Douglas Gold and his idea of what he thought about these people here? You know, so we're buying into these concepts that we don't have to agree with. We don't have to agree with the school board, but yet we'll sit around and say stuff here, but we don't get out there. It's a tough thing. Our community is a harsh place because you put yourself out there and they'll say, hey, this guy, what is he trying to do? Sit down, you know?
All about identity.
Right. How do we get over that? How do we get past that shame that was put on us? Why are you trying to speak like that? Or, you're saying that wrong. Don't be saying it like that. You know. So we quit. We pull back. When we really want to try, we really want to learn, we really like to know what this means. You know. When we have a discussion about 62, you know, she say.
That's a crazy one.
I know. See, in her mind, it's not that, but it's not wrong. But I think our community is a real insecure community. And that's the psychology aspect of this community. That's just one aspect to talk about. Then you have policy and administration and drugs and alcohol, and you have so many factors in this equation. There's always room, makes it more room for error when you have more variables in your equation. Simplify. What does it mean to be Piikani? First of all, do we even agree on that? I mean, this is my opinion when I talk with everybody. I've talked with everybody in this room at some point in my life. Do we all agree upon what is, are we going to say Blackfeet still? Just the concept, nothing has gone well for us under Blackfeet name. And that's just my opinion. But when you say, well, who are you? I'm Blackfeet. They don't say, Wampikani. Maybe they do, I don't know. It's
We're Indians.
Real people.
One of the people that I thought handled that well is Stan Whiteman. He teaches the language in a high school. And he, you know, years and years we've encountered, oh, we don't say it that way. You said it wrong. And, you know, my grandmother said you didn't say it right. But what he did, he contacted the 4 tribes of the Black Confederacy. He found out how they each said a word, and he teaches the 4 versions plus the English phonetic psalms, yeah. So that's how he addressed that, and that's how he handled that problem. And he doesn't have this, you're not saying it right. You're not, this is not the way you say it. But years ago, I got talked into putting in for directorship of the bilingual program through Browning Public Schools. Joyce Goodstriker had left. She wrote the language, she spoke it fluently. I told her, and I just got my teaching certificate. Went back to school as a mature student. And I told her, well, I don't speak the language that good, My parents were acculturated, My mom said, you can't say na-ah. Minatanid na-ah. Just the spoiled kids can say na-ah. You're not spoiled. So I couldn't even say na-ah. She was acculturated. She was boarding school product. So here I jumped in from the frying pan into the fire. The bilingual director, J.R. Clark and Ivan Small said, I told him, I don't know if I can do this. I read all the responsibilities I had. I don't know if I can do it. Oh yeah, you can, Laura. We have full confidence in you. Well, what happened, the cart started turning faster and faster, the wheels, and I was hanging on, and it was pulling me right along. Next thing, I was in a lawsuit, as I was being sued by some different parties of the community. They almost burnt me on the stake as a witch, because I was teaching students that they were made from the beaver and not God, A totally different, it just exploded. And there was community meetings, and there was, the community was just fractioned in half. There was these people for the culture reviving it, and these people that were on belief, and there was no interaction. It was just down the middle. And here I was in the middle on the stake, ready to set it on fire before I escaped. Seriously, it was a real trying time, and it really burned a lot of people. And so I am very cautious and very careful what I get into now, because I have to respect other people's beliefs, other people's way of life. We're not going to change them. We're not going to convert them back to the traditional way of life. They're set in their ways, and those that continued practicing our ways, our Indian ways, kept it alive all these years in spite of the obstacles they encountered.
Yeah, but Laura, I sent my son, I've got my baby now, he's a sophomore in high school, and I just kind of went through this, and when they were younger they went to Cutswood School, but we trust our kids to the public schools all day long.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it just saddens me that he's not, and same with my grandsons, they're not receiving an education that I would like them to receive. So I think that, with public schooling, they just sort of say same thing for everybody. We're going to do the same thing for it, and they make those decisions in Helena of here's our standards, content standards. This is what they're going to learn in social studies. This is what they're going to learn in math and reading and so on. And those decisions are made without any regard to what I want for my kids. So I don't think that that's right. I think that we need to stand up for that and say, no, this is how I want my child, this is what I want my child to learn, which is a language, critical thinking, so that they know how to stand up to, and try to, and be a leader in their community and make things better for our future. All of those things I want my kids to learn. I don't know if it's happening, because I know, like I said, it's just so across the board. We're going to make this decision. This is what kids are going to learn regardless of what parents want. So a really good example, there's some good examples in our community. There's the Cutswood School, there's the academies, the junior academy and the middle school now, and the high school academy. And those are real good examples of just almost like the one-room schoolhouse. This is, it's a little small group, and we can do some different things with different groups of kids. Maybe they want to go, in this career or that career. Maybe they want to learn about computers. Maybe they want to learn about environmental studies, and start sort of guiding them towards that, towards community improvement, and all the while bringing back that language. Because I think one thing that we learned about the kids learning the Blackfeet language is their English skills improve. Across the board, language across the board improves when they learn Blackfeet. So there's really strong research for what we're trying to do. It's just that making it happen and having the courage to do that and stand up to the people that give us the funding and make the decisions.
Yeah, when we were put in boarding schools, our parents didn't have a voice, not one word, as far as what we were going to get educated on, what languages we were going to speak, what religious practices we were going to get involved in. So, and if they protested, then they were jailed. So a lot of our parents had to just sit back and allow it to happen.
Yeah, and what you went through, is criminal. That shouldn't happen to a person trying to work.
And, I'm almost to the point of thinking, if you want your children to learn a language, if you want them to learn your culture, you practice it at home. You create the environment for them, and let them choose which environment they want. We might want something for them, but they might not want it. Just like the farmer that spends years and years and years building up his farmland and preparing it, hoeing it for his children, and then the children go to school, go to college, and decide they don't want to be farmers. That's something to think about. And there's been a lot of disappointment and, splits in families because of that. So I guess the thing about it is, I would say we could go on talking about this like you said, but we need to, I guess, be proactive and say, okay, shall we try something?
So that goes to the next question. I asked the first question of what do you see? The second question is what do you not see happening in the schools? I know you guys touched on some things. Can you elaborate maybe on what you don't see in the schools? Or did we already?
I just come from AHEC. I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I just come from AHEC. And a lot of students that got up and gave a speech started their speech in their traditional language. And I don't see that happening here. I don't see that happening in a high school. They might say their name, but that's as far as they're going. But I was impressed with a lot of the students that got up and spoke in their language. And I don't know why we don't have that much of it going on. I guess that's one thing I noticed. I don't know if it's because they're shy or a little intimidated or what.
When you take your Christmas lights down and you put them in the box, next Christmas you pick them up and they're all tangled up. You have to get it untangled somehow. So where do we begin? And I guess that'll be the next question of what you guys want to see. But is there any more questions or feedback on what you don't see?
I don't see the socialization of people anymore. I can go back to my childhood where everybody was always visiting one another, and that's all they spoke was the language, and a lot of the kids spoke the language. We're too busy with our lives, doing other stuff, and I just don't see that. So any of the knowledge that we have from them is not transferred anymore. That we as language speakers, we're not transferring that knowledge to our children anymore. I mean, that's what I see, that's just my opinion. But we don't sit around the big table anymore and talk to one another and have the big gatherings. Marvin should know, down by the mission, we used to have these big old gatherings, everybody came together. And they had picnics and everything else, And people don't do that no more. They just don't, they just go on their way and, there's no more gatherings anymore. They used to have fun together, they used to create these races, all kinds of activities for kids and adults. It's not happening anymore. There's no more that socialization of our communities anymore. I mean, we might set something for 1 year and then next year we don't do it no more, you know, just, I don't see that anymore. As a child, I seen that.
So, we'll take a break, but keep those questions on your mind and then we'll ask them after we
I
eat.
think it's kind of getting late, so I think everybody's kind of getting tired. Maybe we could eat, and if you guys want to, maybe we can get together another time again.
Okay.
And you know, one of these things that we're looking at maybe in the future, I don't know how people feel about it, but maybe we'll meet once a month. We always have these ideas, but we don't. So, I don't know, how many of you guys feel like if you wanted to meet again for something else? You can say, do that. Alright. We'll, fly over there. No, we'll learn. But yeah,
I'm sorry. Don't look at that. It might not have been charging.